Okay, so I have Apple TV Plus, the streaming service, the new one from Apple, because I got a code in the mail that gave me 3 months free. So I figured, alright, might as well enjoy my 3 free months of Apple TV Plus. And honestly, I was looking forward to this show in particular because the trailers look really good, plus I'm like halfway in love with Hailee Steinfeld. So the day this show came out, November 1st, I just binge watched the entire show. And I was planning on making a video on it that night, but then came the Overwatch news, so I figured, alright, I better make a video on that first. But now it's been a couple days, so let's talk about it. Dickinson. So Dickinson is a new 10-episode long show on Apple TV Plus about Emily Dickinson, who we all studied in English class in high school. She was a poet like 200 years ago in a time when she really wasn't allowed to be, and she's played in this show by Hailee Steinfeld, my future wife, and so the show's kind of a biopic about her life. But the thing that makes this show different is honestly the thing that attracted me to the show, is that yeah, it takes place like 200 years ago, but it tells a story with modern means. People in the show talk how we do nowadays, which in my opinion makes it a lot more accessible. Like when I was watching the trailers for this show, I looked at the YouTube comments and I saw some comments that were like, that's not how Emily Dickinson talked back then. How dare you? That's just totally historically inaccurate. I just wanted to be like, yeah, no shit. That's the whole gimmick of the show. Plus, you know what other widely successful thing tells a 200-year-old story through modern means? Hamilton. Hamilton is a musical about the life of Alexander Hamilton, and it takes place like 200 years ago, and it tells a story through rap. And it's awesome. So right when I made that comparison that Dickinson is like Hamilton, I was instantly drawn to this show. Plus, it also makes for some good humor at points. Like Emily Dickinson hands someone a letter. She's like, read it when I'm gone. The guy's like, you mean when you're dead? And then she's like, dude, no, like when I'm in the other room. It's just funny. And I really like Hailee Steinfeld as Emily Dickinson. She's portrayed in this show as a total rebel. You know, society wants to conform her to the roles of a woman. Back in the day, you know, she's supposed to be a housewife. She's supposed to be married off at 18. She's supposed to do this and that. But she totally doesn't want to do that. She wants to go against the grain. She wants to swim upstream. Other rebellious metaphors. And not only is she portrayed as a rebel, but she's also portrayed as kind of crazy sometimes. She just has a really super artistic, vivid mind. She'll see things in the world that are like hallucinations, and she'll just go with it. And people will give her weird looks like, yeah, she's acting insane again. But Emily Dickinson just doesn't give a shit because she lives in her own world. I find that really cool. It's really artistically expressive, which is great because the world could always use more artistic expression. This show also plays out the fact that maybe, because there are rumors that circulate around whether Emily Dickinson was gay or not, this show pretty much says, what if she was? She has a relationship with her best friend, Sue Gilbert, played by Ella Hunt, who's also just super gorgeous. And this relationship blossoms into romance, which makes things more complicated since it takes place 200 years ago. And if you think people are bad about it now, ooh boy. But of course, that is one of the things that plays into the rebellious aspect of Emily Dickinson's character. Again, going against the grain that society is conforming her to. Now, this show being so artistically expressive, there were points where I was like, this is just weird. Like, the show gets into like across the universe levels of just strangeness. You remember the scene in Across the Universe where it's being for the benefit of Mr. Kite and you're in this circus and you're watching these weird things go on and you're just like, I am on an acid trip right now. Yeah, it's like that in this show, which honestly speaking might turn some people off to it, which I totally get, but I'm just not one of those people because I'm a big Beatles fan. I'm into that kind of psychedelic creativity. I like that stuff, although I don't smoke or do those kind of drugs. Like there'll be points where she sees in her mind, she sees like a human-sized bumblebee that can speak English, and she's like, oh, hey, bee, what's up? And I'm just sitting there like, I guess Hailee Steinfeld just likes bumblebees. But yeah, that is the kind of weird you're getting into when watching this show. Again, the show is all about a dive into her psyche. Each episode of the show is named after one of her poems, so there will be a point in each episode where she's writing that poem, which is kind of funny because you know everyone talks in this show like they do now, but then when she's writing her poems, she writes them like they actually were, which is, you know, old English, which is kind of jarring in that sense, because you're like, if everyone's talking in today's English, then why would she write poems in old English? You get the sense it's because those are the actual poems of the real Emily Dickinson. And sure, the showrunners can slander the dialogue of the characters in the show, but not the poems themselves, which I totally understand. That's fine. However, as much as I like the message of the show and the weirdness and the artistic expression, it's not completely perfect in my eyes. Some of the acting... There's this one character, his name is George. He's the dude who wants to marry Emily Dickinson, and he comes off as really needy. He's played by Samuel Farnsworth. His acting could be improved. I don't know, his character just kind of annoyed me, because I was just like, dude, take the hint. She doesn't want you that way. Just get over it, man. That's just always tough to watch for me. Also, her sister, Lavinia, played by Anna Baryshnikov, she's the one who actually wants to be married off. She wants to be a housewife and all that, and her acting came off as overacting pretty much throughout the entire show. That, or that's how they wanted to portray the character as like a total diva drama queen. mean? Nah, I think it's just overacting. I will say her father was pretty good though. Edward Dickinson, played by Toby Huss, he's the one who represents the conformative society to Emily Dickinson in the show. And he comes off as like really strict and scary at some points. Cause he's like, no, you are not allowed to be a poet. You are slandering the Dickinson name. I will not have this stand in my family. I was just all like, yes sir. Cause he comes off as really intimidating. He doesn't really look it. In fact, he looks like a sweet guy just by the look of him. But nah, he's mean. Props to Toby Huss in this show. Now, like I've been saying, this show is pretty much all about that social commentary. You know, Emily Dickinson being a woman in the 1800s, women didn't nearly have as many rights as men as they do now. And some women back then were okay with it, and Emily Dickinson was not. Again, total rebel. And you're totally rooting for her, you know, because she's the underdog. She mentions things like, you know, women don't have the right to own property or to vote, and I just wanted to be all like, votes for women, step in time, votes for women, step in time. The show gets you into it because you want her to artistically succeed, and that's what matters in the show most. Yeah, there's the whole romance aspect, but honestly, that is secondary. It is all about that artistic expression. The music in this show is an interesting thing, because again, playing to the whole modern aspect, the score in the show is very contemporary, you know, synthesizers, drum machines and all that. The theme music alone, which is like less than 30 seconds long, illustrates what kind of mood you're in for in the show. But like most TV shows, it is more about the soundtrack than the score. And some of the songs were pretty good. Others really seemed in my face at times. Like this song would just be blasting while like a montage is happening or just some background stuff, and I'm just like, alright, can the music simmer down just a bit? And I was hoping that Hailee Steinfeld's song Afterlife, which she did for the show, would be featured in one of the episodes, but it doesn't really come in until the credits of the last episode. That was kind of a bummer. Although, if you can spot the dialogue foreshadowing to that song, I love it when things do that. There's a point in one of the episodes, I think it's like halfway through the show, where the dialogue reflects some of the lyrics in that song. I heard it and I was like, oh, boom, that is awesome. Desolation of Smaug did that, and I loved it there too. So in the end, I thought Dickinson was pretty cool. If there is one word I would use to describe this show, it would be weird. Because again, it's a 200-year-old story told through modern means. Just from that alone, you know you're in for something different. Hailee Steinfeld is fantastic in the show. I think this is actually her television debut. Not bad at all. Some of the other actors, not so great, and some of the music was good, and some of it was too loud. But again, this show is all about that message, that artistic expression about going against the grain, being your own person, no matter what society tries to conform you to. And I think that's great. So Dickinson, have you watched it? What do you think about it? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.